Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Tuesday, the 22nd of August. My name is Ryan McGinlay. You can see the Twitter handle at the Ryan McGinlay, and today I'm joined by Tony Haggerty at a Haggerty10. I had to check before to see if he was match fit for the briefing, like to see if he was available. Doesn't seem like there's any Celtic defenders available, but Tony's still here. He's always here. Tony, how are you doing this morning? You all good?
I'm here and I'm always here, as the legendary Tommy Burns once said. Don't know if God bless me is one of the things that people would say, but yeah, I turned up anyway. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm better than most of the Celtic defence at this moment in time, but that's another story, isn't it? Hello, everybody. How we all doing? Yeah, it's we'll get into it, but yeah, we'll. I'm all right. I'm good, and it's a pleasure to be here as always.
Yeah, and thank you everybody already in the comments that's came to join us. Your support is really appreciated every day. But just before we get started into today's topics, if I could just direct everybody to the bottom of the screen. If you subscribe to the Celtic Way website, you'll be supporting top quality football journalism covering the club you love. There's an opinion piece from Tony on there today. There's also an opinion piece from Kevin McKenna talking about the ticket fiasco, the ticket situation with regards to Celtic and Rangers. It's instant match analysis straight after the game whenever a game's on, big interviews, and anything that you're looking for with regards to Celtic journalism, you should find it on the Celtic Way. If you subscribe, it really does help us continue to create these free videos, both pre-recorded and live every morning. So yeah, if you are interested, then please visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe and get involved. So, Tony, where do we start? I guess we need to talk about the elephant in the room, which seems to be another day, another injury in Celtic's squad. It was reported yesterday, or it was rumoured yesterday on a prominent Celtic Twitter account, first of all, that Maik Nawrocki had been injured in the late portion of the game against Kilmarnock. Now, looking back on it, he did pull up towards the end. He was struggling towards the end of the game. That did turn out to be true. It's now came out through the media that he has, I think, a hamstring injury, I believe, and he's set to be out for at least a couple of weeks, so he won't be available for this weekend's game. And there was numerous reports. Some of them are saying he was touch and go for the Celtic Rangers game, and other people were saying he was out. I guess we're just waiting on Brendan Rodgers to come out and basically confirm the prognosis with regard to his injury. But just straight off the bat, Tony, another defensive injury in a position that Celtic looked pretty comfortable in just last week, you would say. The bad luck continues, or the no luck, I would say. I'd say it isn't even bad luck at this stage, it's just no luck whatsoever. What's your opinion on this? You know, I was talking about I tweeted out yesterday about the potential defensive lineup that could turn up at Ibrox in 2 weeks' time. It's just not ideal whatsoever, is it?
No, it's certainly not ideal. Here's a checklist for you. Cameron Carter-Vickers, Maik Nawrocki, Stephen Welsh, Rio Atati, Alistair Johnson, Oh Hyung-Yu, Marco Tilio, and if you want to include them as Celtic players, even though they've not played too much, James McCarthy, Mikey Johnson and Yuki Kobayashi. That's your burgeoning injury list at the minute. Now, hey, there you go. Per many, one from Minnie's at 9, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah, 10 players. So, as you say, that's horrendous luck for Brendan Rodgers, but you would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them are kind of in and around the first team, aren't they? Stroke regulars. Well, Vickers, Nawrocki, Hatate, Alistair Johnson, and O are certainly kind of he was classed as regulars. Marco Tilly, you're still to see. Stephen Welsh has been coming back into the side, so as you say, it's just horrendous luck. But I tell you what, Celtic do have, if they really want to do something about it, they've got 9-10 days in the transfer window to do something about it. And I've actually put out a tweet this morning with a link to the opinion piece that I did today. This will be Celtic's statement of intent, how they act or react in the next 10 days. And some of it might have to be short-termism in your thinking, Ryan, in terms of maybe pulling in another defender. If you say you're worried about going in with a central defence of Stephen Welsh, Lagerbielke and Ralston and Taylor at Ibrox. So
Stephen Welsh is out long-term injured as well. So
yeah,
Scales.
Sorry, Scales. I meant Liam Scales. Yeah, sorry, I said Steve Melcher, didn't I? So I think that sharpens the senses and it refocuses you on what you're going to do over the window. And I think if you have to make a couple of short-term signings to cover you for those positions that need covered, then yeah, you're maybe going to have to do that, and also try and get in the quality additions that the manager said he wanted, or he hopes to bring in. And I think it's now time for Brendan Rodgers to be really proactive on that and say, do you know what? Might have been handed lists from Mark Lawwell, but I think Brendan Rodgers has to turn and say, you know what? I'm going to try and get this X, Y, and Z in the next 9-10 days that are coming up. Celtic face a really crucially important 9-10 days. I'm not as doom and gloom as a lot of people out there, but you just there's a worry there, isn't there? There's a worry there when you don't want to be going to Ibrox with that back four. It's not what you intended. Joe Hume Music saying horrendous injury list, get the boots polished, Tony. Yes, I've got a glorious future behind me in terms of my football career. Maybe a few years ago and a couple of stone ago, Joe. Yep, indeed. But yeah, it's not ideal. I think that's a euphemistic term for, lots of people saying don't panic, all that kind of stuff. But I think Celtic have got the manager's got real thinking to do in these 9 days, and he has to go to the board and say, look, this is what happens. Well, I wrote yesterday that, or I wrote today certainly, that I think that everybody thinks the transfer window's been pretty underwhelming, hasn't it? Especially when they've made noises about going to the stock market with, basically saying with a plentiful supply of cash. Now, we've spoken about this all over the summer about not spending money for the sake of it, but, I'm sure Celtic could have brought in some players before now. You're now getting to the stage where lots of people are jockeying into position and it becomes that kind of countdown to deadline day and things. I'm not saying they get rushed, but, you're at the mercy of time then, aren't you? Past couple of years under Ange Postecoglou, they did business early, but they were doing business early with players that Ange Postecoglou knew he could get in because seasons were coming to an end, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's all seemed to have come on top of Celtic at one go, hasn't it? They're getting used to a new system, lots of injuries, new manager, knocked out the cup. Any good news, Ryan? Any good news to sell me today?
I'm trying to. No, it's just me. Maybe this is me just being presumptuous, but I would have expected at 10:30 last night when the exclusives come out from the mainstream media that Celtic would have been linked with all sorts of players. Time is of the essence. We've only got 9-10 days of the transfer window left, but there was nobody. And I don't want to. I try and be the most positive person that I can be, but that performance on Sunday, it still left a really lingering feeling in me. I did not enjoy it whatsoever. There was no good elements of that performance whatsoever. And I'm not going to go into panic stations and say, "Oh, it's a nightmare." The defense is a nightmare. I know the defense is a nightmare, but if my voice doesn't go as well, there's another night that could be a positive for some people. I don't know, but Sunday was just a nightmarish performance. I'm willing to put it down as just a bad day at the office, even though Celtic haven't been playing all that great so far this season. I'd be expecting a fight back against St Johnstone on Saturday afternoon. I would presume that would be the case, but yeah, there's been no links with new players coming through the door. The only link that people seem to have been making is potentially Jota coming back, but even then, I think that's pretty much pie in the sky stuff. I think he'll be quite happy where he is. He'll be trying his best to stay on that Al Ittihad contract and stay on it for as long as possible, as he should. He did agree to it just over a month ago. I'm sure he'll be wanting to make the money that he's signed on the dotted line for that contract. So yeah, I just think defensively, it's not panic stations, but at the same time, I'm really, really worried about the way this defence is lining up. You know, what started as I thought that Celtic needed 2 or 3 statement signings in the transfer window. I think we might need 4 or 5 at this point. Whether that happens or not is a different story. But I think Celtic need to be busy in this next 19 days. Time is of the essence here, because I don't want to talk about similarities, but to me there's just a really lingering feeling of similar. Do you remember in the 2020-21 season? Now, I'm not comparing the two, but do you remember when a lot of players were out? I know I mentioned it, but do you remember when a lot of the players were out due to COVID going into the Ibrox game?
Yeah.
And there was that worry. That's how I feel just now about the defence, and I just don't want a domino effect to happen, and then the team is in disarray. So I just want it sorted as soon as possible. You know, having guys back soon like Alistair Johnson should be good. With the news about Carter Vickers yesterday as well, it looks as if he's going to be out for the foreseeable. That's a disaster as well. But if it needs to be short term, then so be it. You know, loan deals with Celtic don't have any loan players at this moment in time, so they've got a quota that they can use if there was anybody that was available to come in through the door. But I think time is the essence with regard to defensive positions.
I think the events of Sunday in Celtic were woeful. We won't gloss over that in any shape or form. I think it's kind of strengthened Brendan's hand, hasn't it? The injuries have also strengthened his hand, because something has to happen now, Ryan. Celtic cannot go to the likes of Ibrox in 2 weeks, or less than 2 weeks now, with the current squad. They need reinforcements, they need new blood, they need guys to come in the door. And I think they will get through it, but it's just hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel at this particular juncture, isn't it? Of course, the comparisons are going to become thick and fast with the season that shall not be named, although you named it. Shame on you. And everybody's still painting that doom and gloom scenario. We are 3 games into the season, right? Okay, they're out the League Cup. It's not ideal. You know, trebles are very hard to do. Celtic have won 8 in their history. You know, so do the maths. They don't just come around. You know, they've won 5 in the last 7 years. So I think, you know, it was a kind of position that a lot of Celtic fans were getting used to, but they are hard to come by treble, so that's fine. But I said when Brendan Rodgers came back, he wasn't coming back to win the League Cup, and it still stands. I still stand by that. Now Celtic made noises about wanting to be better in Europe, and everybody's like looking through their splayed fingers about the prospect of going into Europe. I still maintain that I can't wait for the Champions League draw to be made, and I can't wait to see who we get. I can't wait to see Celtic in amongst the elite, because they will not go in with that kind of team. There'll be players back from injury. There'll be new players there, but we do face I hesitate to say the word crucial 10 days, but I think something has to give here. You know, Brendan has to really say to the board, look, I need to sign X, Y, or Z. If anything else, just to give everybody a lift and G the place up. You know, they've gone from a real position of strength and a manager who still believes an elite level manager coming in to this. You know, it's kind of like, wow, and it seems to have crept up and happened overnight. And, you know, that Kilmarnock has served as a warning. You just can't turn up, and you've got to make things happen. And you cannot underestimate how poor that performance was on Sunday. But what I don't want them to do is to try and rush back the likes of Alistair Johnston for the Ibrox game, because you look at Cameron Carter-Vickers at Pittodrie, and I know players are fit and they're declared fit and stuff like that, but when they were saying he was well ahead of schedule and he'd be back for the start of the season, everybody was like, great, magic, great big man, but there was always a note of caution for me, don't bring them back too soon. I don't know if that's the case with Cameron Carter-Vickers, but you just sort of say, well, we've paid the penalty for that, because the second game of the season he's got injured and now looks likely to miss the most important game at the start of the season, which was Rangers at Ibrox on September the 3rd. Now, had Cameron Carter-Vickers had to miss the Ross County game and the Aberdeen game and Sunday, and maybe came back against St Johnstone or even came back against Rangers, I'd have been all for that. But so we're now in a position where, you kind of think we're behind the 8 ball a wee bit here. When did it have to be like that? I don't know. Can you help players get injured? Luck plays a huge part. But then you ask, why have Celtic got so many injuries? They seem to be the same, don't they? Hamstrings.
I was going to bring this up,
things like that. So, is there a wider sports science argument here that needs to be delved into deeper? I'm now wandering into the realms of something that I'm not qualified to talk about. People probably say that. People probably say that about football as well. You're not qualified to talk about that. You clown, shut up, sit down. But so there's a whole sports science argument that comes into this. Is it bad luck? Is it the way they're training? Is it various other things? No, I don't have the answers, but there are questions that you can throw into the ether, and maybe somebody with the right qualifications and skills can tell us that. Someone also saying Cameron Carter-Vickers' injury is a different one. I get that, but there seems to be it's kind of hamstring
injuries,
tweaks and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm throwing it out there, and there's nobody to blame for these things. So I'm happy to hear why we got it just seems to be. Well, that's 10 players. That's 10 players are listed there, injured. And it's why is that? Is it merely coincidental? Is it real? Is it bad luck? Is there something that can be improved upon? These are questions
at Leicester as well. Not to put two and two together, but in Brendan Rodgers' last season at Leicester, there was a lot of injuries. So I don't know if that's down to the way that he trains his team, if they go full pelt in training, or they're doing something that aggravates hamstring injuries too much, that they happen either on the training ground or it gets aggravated and they go onto the pitch and it gets worse. But that there's a lot of hamstring injuries for the start of the season. We're only 3 games into the season, and yet there's quite a sizable amount. It's an injury list that you'd probably put down to later on in the season. That'd be the sort of injury list you'd get in a crisis mode in January, February time, not 3 games into a season. You know what I mean?
But remember, it happened to Ange as well, didn't it? Celtic
In his first season.
Injury in his first season, and players, they'll tell you that they go at full tilt and full pelt at training. So is it that? I don't know. And then lots of managers now will tell you that the biggest thing that players can get is actual rest. It's R&R, it's rest and recuperation after football matches. And now you look at the new rules coming in, and Brendan Rodgers touched upon it, that he didn't like the fact that you could play as much as 10, 11 minutes injury time. They're starting to bring that in, because over the course of 5, 6, 7, 8 games, you might end up playing another 90 minutes in terms of the added on time that you're playing, right?
You'll have about 8 players on the pitch by the time these added minutes go in.
It all takes its toll, and it stretches your resources in your squad depth and all that, So when managers are telling you these kind of things, then I think you tend to have to listen to football people when there's too many demands placed on players. Now, I think can't point the finger at Brendan Rodgers and say it's his fault. Injuries happen, they're part and parcel of football. I think people are putting 2 and 2 together with the Leicester thing as well, and just sort of saying, well, why is that? So I think it's a bit unfair to say that, but it just, there's something there, isn't there? There's something underlying that maybe has to be addressed. I don't know what it is, because again, if you're talking about sports science, there's more qualified people out there than me to talk about it. But I would just like to I would like to know if there is an underlying sports science argument, and is there any case for that happening to Celtic in terms of their burgeoning injury list. But going back to matters on the park, I think Brendan, and I wrote that in the piece and I put it in the comment section if you want to read it. I said he has to get his hands dirty over the next 9-10 days and bring in the players that he wants. He has to go to the board and say, I would like X, Y, and Z. I need X, Y, and Z. Can we go and sign X, Y, and Z? And I think right now most people want a new defence, don't they? So they want a new defence, they want a Jota replacement, and they want a midfield enforcer. So what's that? 2, 3, 4 players, and whether that's conceivable or possible in 10 days, I find it's highly unlikely, but maybe 2 or 3, I think, would give lots of people peace of mind. I am not I don't want to paint a doom and gloom scenario because one lost match doesn't burst your season, but certainly an early warning shot, isn't it, that things have to improve, things have to get better. We all know that, don't we?
And I just think as well, it's a build-up of what's happened elsewhere in the transfer window that I think people are getting a wee bit more annoyed to the fact of the defensive situation, because as I mention in every single podcast I do on here now, the Jota replacement still isn't here over a month on. Is the Jota replacement going to be Jota again?
Jota himself.
Who would be better to replace Jota than Jota himself? If he was to leave, I guess we could go on to talk about that actually with regard to the Jota situation, which is absolutely bizarre if you ask me. So Jota leaves Celtic to join Al Ittihad in the Saudi Pro League. He's on a reported tax-free £192,000 a week, obviously converted into Saudi Arabian money. A month down the line, he's only played about 30 minutes worth, coming off the bench in a lot of games for that Saudi Arabian team. And now they want to let him go so they can bring somebody else in as a sort of designated player. Now, this whole situation is so weird. It's been such a weird transfer window with regard to the Saudi involvement in terms of getting players in. The big names that have went to the Saudi Pro League has just exploded over the last sort of 2 months or so. It's died down a tiny bit now. You don't see as big a names going now at this point in the window, but I mean, about a month or two ago, it was absolutely crazy. Tony, what's your opinion on that? Jota, he's been there a month, and now he's available to go for free. Does that mean that he's going to get paid off? Does that mean he's going to get all that money in a lump sum, and he'll be able to go wherever? Because if that's the case, then
Listen,
if he's got all that money, then he can pick his club basically.
Listen, I think Jota coming back is one for the eternal optimists and dreamers, of which I am one, right? Yeah, of course. So you never rule it out. Chances of it happening are pretty unrealistic. But I tell you what, Jota said it himself. He signed for Celtic because he fell in love. He will never be loved in his career the way he was at Celtic. And they find that out when they leave. They get tough love everywhere else. They get absolutely adored and loved. And if I'm Jota, and I've got, the pick of clubs, but if I want to be happy again, because that will have jolted him a wee bit, I would come back to what he knows, if there's any chance of that happening, and it can be arranged. And what he knows is Celtic, and he was happy at Celtic. He told you himself his goodbye speech was, a kind of love letter, wasn't it? Basically saying, I love you. I don't particularly want to leave, but I've just been offered, the generational wealth of money that will set me and my family up for life, and I can't turn it down. And it just seems really, really strange. I never ever thought that he would find that happiness. I never thought he'd find that happiness, certainly in the Saudi Pro League. And I could have coped. I think lots of Celtic supporters could have coped with it better had he gone down south to, a bigger club in terms of, an English Premier League club. He went to a club that were awash with cash.
He'd still do that.
Yeah, correct, but certainly not awash with ambition. And I think that's what it made it a wee bit unpalatable for a lot of Celtic supporters. Now, if he wants to get his career back on track, I guess he might end up back in England or Spain or something, if that's what he fancies. But if he really is at a crossroads and Celtic would want him back, take him back, I think they would take him back in a heartbeat, and he made overtures that he'd want to come back. then I think you've got to be interested in that, haven't you? You've got to turn around and say, well, we've not replaced him, so we'll just replace him with himself again, and if it's at all possible. I mean, I don't understand. I don't imagine that the finances would allow for Celtic to do that, but I'm sure if he is coming back to, say, British football, then I'm sure Celtic will be high on his list. Because he loved his time at the club, and as you've seen since he left, there's a pretty big void there that Celtic
Massive
have.
void.
Massive void, right? Double digits in terms of goals and assists, both seasons. And he would be coming back to a place that he knows well, and he would be coming back again as a main man. But, I couched at the start and saying it's for the eternal dreamers and optimists. Who knows? You never rule anything out in football. Don't know what's going through Jota's mind at the minute, but I think he just wants to play football, doesn't he? And I don't think he'll struggle to get a club after what he did at Celtic. It just has to be the right club for him, doesn't it? Because he spoke himself about being the right club and being the right culture. He likes culture and stuff like that as well, which surprised me even more that he went to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
But
me too.
I think he wanted to immerse himself in that and find out all about it for himself. He's found out all about it the hard way, hasn't he? Just a strange episode. And and I think if he wanted to come back, the Celtic supporters would certainly accept him with open arms, wouldn't they? If there's any possibility of that happening, then he becomes a person of interest, doesn't he? And go and ask him the question. But I think what's happened now is the financial parameters for any kind of deal for Jota are kind of burst, aren't they? One would conjecture. I'm not 100% on that, but
Yeah.
I would think it would cost too much. But I think if the player pushed for it, then you would certainly have to enter into some kind of discussion about it, wouldn't you? And see if there's a possibility of, I hesitate to use the words bringing him home type thing, but bringing him to a place where he's loved, so.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those ones. I think personally, it's too much of an open goal for Tottenham Hotspur to not take this. To be honest,
Yeah.
If he's available on a free transfer, and Ange Postecoglou did get the best out of him at Celtic. He never played under Brendan Rodgers at Celtic, so it's a different team. I know that, but he did play under Ange Postecoglou for 2 years. I just think that would be too much of an easy win for Spurs to go and get a player. They're playing Heung-min Son and Kulusevski out in the wings. Jota could do a job for them, but I don't want to talk about Spurs too much because that's all in the past with regard to Postecoglou. We move on. We have to move on. Do you think? You just look at the wing position. Now, I know we were speaking about the defence today, and the defence is a nightmare scenario. You might need some short-term answers with regard to those positions, the centre of defence positions. But on the wings, do you think there still needs to be that player that comes in that's dynamic, that's got the guile that Jota had? Because when you look at Abada and Maeda, I would say the two are quite similar in a lot of ways, where they do like to run onto things, but they're not really the best sort of providers or creators of things. They're better at the physical side of the games. Maybe not Abada with his physicality. He has a bit lightweight, but in terms of just they like a long ball, but they don't really like beating a man. Do you think there needs to be there needs to be a winger that comes in that plays on the left wing still, that has the ability to beat a man? I don't know where you would get that, but do you think that's an area where Celtic do need to improve on?
Of course, because I think what you notice about Maeda and Abada is they can fall out of a game as quick as they can fall in a game. You know what I mean? It's like they were largely anonymous, a pair of them on Sunday. And people can blame the surface or whatever, but they weren't in the game. And when you could have took either off at half time and replaced them with Yang, which astounded me why the manager didn't do it, especially afterwards when he said that Yang was a bright spark. When he came on and Celtic looked a bit more likely, missed a chance as well. Yang could have equalised. So I I thought at half time I would have brought Yang on for either of the two of them, and that's how poorly they were playing. They were hardly in the game at all, and then they both, well, what was it? I don't know, when did Yang come on? 70 minutes, something like that. I'm not sure. Round about that,
Yeah, around about that time.
And 20 minutes is a big ask, And again, if those two guys are negated and your centre forward is playing 40 yards, 50 yards from goal, trying to link up the play, then you're not going to create, are you? You're not going to get any shots on goal, which is why Will Dennis had one of his easiest afternoons. Again, and you just don't expect that. Kilmarnock goalkeeper doesn't expect that when he plays Celtic or Rangers. But, I mean, I think, where's Kyogo at his best? In the box. No, what happens in the box? So how you've got to get the ball to him in the box. But if you've got two wingers and neither of them are providing that, then that's your top three players negated, totally out the game, which is why Celtic struggled. Because even allowing for the fact that your midfielders are picking up the ball, nobody's making any movement. They got through them once, and that was when, right in the opening stages, when home failed to pick out Kyogo with a poor cutback. Any other day, just trundles that across the 6-yard box and Kyogo's got a tap in, because he was there. It was just that the ball was so poor and the angle was dreadful when he went on the slide and he put it wide. But that's the opening of the game. And that should have been an easy 1-0 chance. But it wasn't. But you're expecting Maida and Abada then to take the lead from that and think, okay, this is how we do it. They've done it often enough, but I go back to it. When those guys are not functioning and not playing, they can become jersey fillers, and you need more than jersey fillers. You need people to make a valid contribution, make an impact. And it was noteworthy of the malaise that infected the team on Sunday, that your two wingers, it took Yang to come on to actually take a man on, beat a man. Same with Haksabanovic when he came on. And I think Maida offers a lot defensive qualities and all that, and and I get all that. But again, when Taylor was off the park, Maida shouldn't have allowed Armstrong to cross that ball over that led to the goal. So, you switch off. I think Celtic on Sunday switched off in quite a lot of areas in the park. The wide areas being the two guys in the wide areas were most guilty of it. They just weren't switched on at all. Didn't turn up. But I don't remember either of them getting to the dead ball line, putting on a cross, or fashioning a chance for Kyogo, or fashioning a chance for themselves, or even looking hungry for the ball and trying to make things happen the way Yang did in the last 20 minutes. But the last 20 minutes, it became a bit desperation stuff, didn't it? You were trying to throw the kitchen sink at it without much creativity there. It was all kind of, right, all hands to the pump, just bombard them with, anything that we can do, but just wasn't working. And that's the problem when you play with two wingers like Abada and Maida. As much as going forward, sometimes they can be quite potent, they can also be negated quite easily at times, too easily for my liking. And when they're negated, then your centre forward's got nobody to feed off, has he? And he's coming 40, 50 yards. And I know he's been tweaked in that, and Brendan wants him to get involved in the link-up play. I think you look at Kyogo's goal against Aberdeen, that's what he does. A half an opportunity, he had that controlled and he rattled it into the net. That's what Kyogo is. He's a penalty box predator, and you have to give him the ball in the penalty box. So it's And again, I go back to Sunday, and I don't know what shape or pattern or what. I was struggle to get to see what Brendan Rodgers has set the Celtic team out to do on Sunday, because whatever they were set out to do, they certainly never followed any kind of instruction. It was so disjointed. It was so it just lacked everything, didn't it?
It was boring. And I actually
Yeah.
turned around to my dad a couple of times and said, "This is boring football. There's no penetrating passes. We're just passing for passing's sake, passing it about the team. No problem with possession, but doing absolutely nothing with it. It was useless possession. Nothing had any sort of meaning to it. And I think you could go back to one of the things that Brendan Rodgers said in pre-season with regard to Daizen Maeda. Now, I know he had a bad performance. One thing you could say about Daizen Maeda is that he never hides away, never shirks away. When he's bad, he's noticeably bad because he's trying to play himself into a game. He made quite a few mistakes over the 90 minutes. One of the worst ones being that one where he just passed the ball back to the goalkeeper when he was through, or when he was running through. It was something like from a Sunday league. I know he was playing on a Sunday, but it was Sunday league stuff from him. Some of his decision making is quite baffling in that regard. But Brendan Rodgers was saying that he preferred him as a striker through the middle. Yet he said that, but every competitive game so far this season, he's played out on the left. Now I know Kyogo's up front because he's the best striker, but why not go for something different? I'm not saying take Kyogo off if you've started him, then play him. But I would have argued that Kyogo could have easily been on the bench for this game, and you could have tried Daizen Maeda up front and put Yang out wide. Now I know this is all hindsight is a wonderful thing. We've lost the game. It could be a different game. Kyogo comes and scores 2 or 3 goals, but you just feel as if with how good Yang's cameo appearances were in the first couple of games of the season, surely Sunday was a great opportunity to give him the start and see what he can really do, especially in a League Cup tie. It actually annoyed me when he came on that he was the only one that was him and Haksabanovic especially. It took a guy that's only been in the door 2 months. He was the one that was most desperate to make things happen. He knew what was required in that moment. There was far more experienced players on that pitch that afternoon that knew what was required, that knew what was at stake with regard to a knockout competition that the League Cup is. Why did it take somebody that's only been in the door basically 2 minutes to show any sort of fight or any sort of I don't know, any sort of motivation to do better, to get forward? It was a real annoyance for me.
Yeah, I mean, Sunday's a sore one, right? But you just got to take your dumps and get over it, and and move on. You have to move on. Can't dwell on it. And yeah, lots of things that you would like to have seen, like Yang playing from the start, that kind of thing. Odin Thiago Home played from the start, which we'd highlighted during the week. But it's. I think Callum McGregor's comments afterwards were quite telling. He said that they'd abandoned their principles. If you abandon your principles on the park, then what are you actually doing? What instructions are you following? And it's no surprise then that Celtic lost that game. When your captain's telling you that the players abandon their principles on the park, then I thought that was quite telling.
I think that's quite worrying, I'll be honest.
Well, both, And again, you go back to it and you think, okay, he referenced the Livingston game that Celtic lost when Ange Postecoglou was in charge in 2021. They lost 1-0 down in Livingston. And then I think they ended up going to Pittodrie and winning, and everything kind of turned round. So, and he also said that we have to make sure that it doesn't affect 2, 3, 4 results. So there's always been kind of moments like that you look back on. There was Livingston, and then Celtic went on a bit of a charge, didn't they? And then last season, there was some Mirren game, wasn't there, where they never turned up, and everything was to blame, including the grey strip and all that kind of stuff. So there are moments when it doesn't happen. You have that so-called bad day at the office. Now, I think a lot of the Celtic supporters will accept one bad day at the office. Yeah, they're out the cup, and that's bitterly disappointing. They'll accept it if there's no more, but they're worried that there could be more in the offing, because the 2 games before, whilst they were wins, they weren't exactly, free-flowing, and they weren't exactly... There were moments in both those games where the opposition had spells. Ross County at the start of the opening game of the season, and Aberdeen prior to equalising and after equalising. So I think Celtic supporters are kind of signposting it as well, saying things have to get better, they have to improve. The captain's saying that as well, that they have to dig deep within themselves. Doesn't help when you've got key members of personnel injured. But I spoke about it on Sunday, that there just seemed to be a lack of Celtic doing the basics right, and it was compounded by McGregor saying that Celtic had abandoned their football principles, and it got a bit desperate. And so we'll leave. I think Celtic have to park that performance at Rugby Park on Sunday and have to leave it. Everybody has to move on. Yeah, it's worrying. You can rake over the coals of it till you're blue in the face. They got beat. They now have to sort of find some resolve and dig deep and hope that in the next few days that they go to work in the transfer market and bring in personnel and bolster that team, because that team needs bolstered. Pick any position you want and you'll think that it needs bolstered. So, yeah, and I think the manager knows that himself. So I think they have to kind of step up to the plate now. Even the players that are there as well, they were match winners. They know how to win football matches. Only 3 of the starting 11, as I said, were kind of new to Celtic. The rest of them, there was no really excuse for that kind of insipid performance. But as I say, I'm trying not to dwell on it, because the more I talk about it, the more you feel the anger rising to the surface.
I totally agree with you. I'm the same.
I just think the focus now has to be St Johnstone and getting himself into some kind of shape for going to Ibrox a week on Saturday. And and people are worried, and I get that, it's only natural, but you just kind of, you're trying to trust this process, aren't you? But you've got 9 days of a process where Celtic have to be proactive in the transfer market and bring in players of a certain calibre that will help you moving forward.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, where do you go with regard to positivity? It's Tuesday just now. In 4 days' time, Celtic play St Johnstone at Celtic Park. I think one of the main objectives for that game, I know we'll talk about it in more detail as the days go on leading up to that tie, but I think one of the aspirations for that game is to produce a 90-minute performance and produce a clean sheet at the end of that. In all of Celtic games so far this season, they've conceded goals. That's something that needs to stop. I know Ange Postecoglou's side, his Celtic side, conceded goals, but he didn't mind that sort of 3-2, 2-1, as long as Celtic won the game, as long as Celtic scored more than the opponent, that was fine. I think Brendan Rodgers takes clean sheets a little bit more seriously. He has a sense of pride and a good defensive record too. So I think there needs to be a clean sheet. There needs to be. I know that's difficult with regard to the defence that Celtic currently find themselves equipped with, but at the end of the day, Celtic should be beating St Johnstone, and comfortably at home. It's not an ideal situation with the defence, but at the same time, Celtic should have more than enough. You would presume.
I think Celtic have enough quality to beat most teams, i.e. every team in the league. They've shown that. So I think you're hoping that Sunday was just a blip. And I mean, when the manager came in, he inherited a right good squad of players. Jota left, Moy retired, but I still felt that they were going to be really proactive and bring in that sprinkling of stardust to take Celtic, another step further. I think everybody's disappointed and underwhelmed with what has happened, and we're now getting down to the crucial stages. And I'm not saying there'll be panic buys made, but you can't help but think at this moment that they're in a kind of certain state of alarm. And it didn't have to be like that, did it? Brendan Rodgers comes in, he assesses the squad, and he looks and he thinks, right, surely he should have. I would have thought by now they would have been more active, and Celtic would have did more business in the window. But I'm not everyone else. I'm disappointed that they haven't been linked.
Do you think it's maybe? Sorry, do you think it's maybe down to the fact that it's maybe down to the fact that not as many players have left the club the other way, and they're struggling to balance that book with regard to wages. It must be quite a hefty wage bill, especially with players that just aren't contributing to the cause. When you look at guys like Ayeti, I was going to say Sorrow there, but Sorrow has left the club. Amazingly, that has actually happened. James McCarthy. There's other examples, but do you think there's maybe not been as many outcomings as what they've expected? Sorry, there's a fly on this camera, and it's really annoying me. Do you think there's not been as many outgoings as what Celtic would have expected, and that's the reason why there's not been as many incomings because of it?
It's possible, but in the years gone past, I would have said, yeah, that's a fact, but the money's there. They said themselves in the statements.
They announced it to the stock exchange.
They announced it to the world in the stock exchange. So there's no real excuse for Celtic not to have. And I'm not saying spend 10, 12 million on players. I did think they might have made one statement of intent signing. I really did. And I mean, obviously, Edouard and Julien being 9 million players, I thought they would maybe at least equal that. Or if not, maybe 2 or 3 in the 5 or 6 million pound bracket, Ryan. I don't think that's too much to ask when you're telling people that, that you're cash rich. So if that's
no wonder if you don't spend it. That's the thing. If you can be rich in one aspect, and then, it's great profits. It looks great on a statement. It looks great to sort of flex your muscles, but at the same time, if you're not spending it, then it is going to look like a lot of money. Celtic have got to speculate to accumulate here.
And there was also the kind of that Brendan came back and he was going to be handed this £30 million transfer kitty. I always took that with a pinch of salt because I always thought Celtic will spend what they spend. They won't just throw money at it, crazy money at it. But I was always kind of not wary of that. I looked at that and I thought, okay. I thought, well, he's back to make an impact in Europe. He's back to win the title again. Wasn't too concerned about things like the League Cup. I'm certainly not concerned about the League Cup now. But I thought, he's putting his reputation on the line because he's won 7 out of 7. That's gone now as well. So, but I think things have been, sluggish. Not even sluggish. They've just been slow. I expected a wee bit more acceleration in terms of bringing people in, and I know he had to assess the team and see what they had to offer. But I thought he did that, and he got a lot of evidence of what people had to offer from pre-season matches in Japan, and then Atletico as well. So, and I know they're pre-season, but I always talk about those idiosyncrasies and behaviours that players do. So I just it was Celtic that made the noises about they wanted to make an impact in Europe, wasn't it? The manager himself said it when he came in and he took over, and I think that's what got everybody excited. And then everybody was like, excellent, maybe we are, not say throw money at it per se, but maybe they are going to go out and spend some serious cash and bring in 3 or 4 top quality players within Celtic's financial parameters. But it's not happened, and I think that's what's kind of, I wouldn't say upset people, but it's kind of, they're a bit disenfranchised with it all, aren't they? They're to the point. I'm not saying they're disengaged, but they're worried, for want of a better word, aren't they? They're worried that they
They're a
don't
bit
see.
miffed, to be honest.
Aye, yeah, and they're perplexed and puzzled as to why Celtic would make these kind of public proclamations and then not follow through on it. So
we talk about the proactive and reactive nature of Celtic's business, a lot of it being reactive once the problem has already happened. And in the past couple of years, they have been proactive with regard to bringing in. Obviously, they knew that Juranovic was going to be leaving the club. That's why they brought in Alistair Johnson. There have been other examples elsewhere on the park, but I just think with regard to the Jota one has really caught them off guard. It's quite obvious that they were not expecting that development to happen this summer. They were probably expecting Jota to stay for another season before leaving the following season, maybe to go down south or somewhere. The Saudi money just came out of nowhere. It's money that they couldn't turn down. It's money that Jota couldn't turn down. It is what it is. But, we're a month on. Brendan Rodgers was talking about being a European force. And then there was comments about a week or two ago saying it's going to be a challenge in Europe. I don't know. He's homed it in a bit in the couple of months, I think. And now I don't know why that is. Maybe he's assessed the squad and it isn't where he thought it was, or maybe he's been told he won't be getting as much money as what was originally talked about. I've got no doubt that he will be backed in this 8-9 days remaining, because he has to. There's no other way. Brendan Rodgers has to, or there's going to be quite a bit of discontent within the crowd and within the supporters if he isn't backed in these next few weeks. So yeah, it is a very interesting sort of situation that Celtic find themselves in at the moment, and I guess it's a watch this space with regard to the transfer activity in the next 8-9 days. What do you think, Tony? Do you think it's going to be a busy 8-9 days, or is it more a hope than an expectation?
I certainly hope so, and I think it is a hope rather than an expectation. But I don't know. I just, there's something all right at this moment, isn't that right? I don't want to particularly panic about stuff. They have lost one game. They won the 2 league games and scored 7 goals in the process, didn't they? So I refuse to go overboard about it. But you just see there's early warning signs there, and I think when you have the means at your disposal to do something about it, then I think you'd be pretty negligent not to do anything about it. And I think the manager has to, go to the board and be hands-on now, hands on the tiller, and say, I would like, this player, that player, and that player to come in before the end of the window. Is there any way we can do it? Lots of people saying that they saw this coming and, the writing's on the wall. But Callum McGregor was asked that question Sunday. Did he see this result coming? He said no, he didn't. So if the players didn't see it coming, then, he's only being honest and he's telling you that, So I think there are serious questions to be asked in the remaining 9 days. That squad needs beefed up. It needs bolstered. It needs new faces. It needs new blood, and it needs, Celtic need lifted, don't they? The club needs lifted. The supporters need lifted, and I'll say I think the next few days, 9-10 days, will be Celtic's real statement of intent in terms of how ambitious they're going to be, or how they're going to back up those words about doing something in Europe. You worry about the current squad in terms of Europe when it comes along, but I'll deal with that when it comes along. And when the draw comes in, people keep talking about project signings. There's been a couple of them, but I think you and I have spoken about it all summer. We need oven-ready players, first-team-ready players to go straight in and make an impact. And it is Plunge McNugget there. September the 1st, 10 days, it's countdown. It is countdown time. Very much so, I think.
That's no time at all. That's incredible.
And that's, and I think that's that's it. That's the worry, that time is of the essence now, as you said earlier, Ryan, and it's going to go down to the wire in terms of some of your signing targets, possibly. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm, as you say, it's more in hope than expectation that Celtic actually go into the market and do something in these 10 days. But the money's there. I keep mentioning the fact that the money's there, so there is no real excuse for them not, is there?
No, absolutely not. Position of strength and all that, We've watched this movie before. I think Tony, you might have watched it more times or you might have rewatched it more times than I have.
Is that a euphemism for saying I'm an old guy? Is that an older
No, it's
guy?
more experience.
I'm more experienced.
You're more battle hardened to this.
I've
to
got
this sort of
battle
thing
hardened,
happening.
most certainly. Yeah.
I'll find a way around it.
That's all right. Don't worry. It's all good.
But yeah, it's I think we'll leave it there because we've went on for 55 minutes and we want to speak about more stuff later on in the week when things do materialise. But I thought it was just important to sort of get everybody's opinions about how they felt about the weekend and how they feel about the transfer or lack of transfers. It's very. I think it's quite emotive when you talk about the transfer window because. Once you've got that safety net when the transfer window's open, and then once it's closed, you can't do anything else. So I think Celtic supporters are saying basically, time's of the essence. Do something while you still can, and then we'll gauge our position from then on. But I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us today on the show. We really do appreciate your comments. And just before we leave, before Tony and I leave today, if you subscribe to the Celtic Way website, if you have a look at the ticker tape down at the bottom of the screen, you'll be supporting top quality football journalism covering the club you love. We do daily articles, daily morning briefings. We do pre-recorded videos that go out the weekend. Big match verdicts, match reviews, instant analysis. We've got big interviews as well, scouting reports. Hopefully there'll be more scouting reports in the coming days because that'll mean that Celtic are close to signing players. That would be a good sign. Also, there's analytical pieces from Duco James and Alan Morrison, so really stats heavy stuff. If that's the way that you're inclined and the way you like to view your football, then that'll be available on the website as well. So if you visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe and get involved, then you would really be helping us and you would enable us to continue what we do, such as these videos every morning. It really is appreciated. So thank you very much, guys. Tony, thank you very much for joining me today. Really do appreciate it. It's been a bit of a...
Glad I was fit.
That's that. You passed the fitness test and you're available. Are you available for tomorrow?
I'll be available for tomorrow if selected, yes. I think I'll pass any fatness test these days, Ryan, so we're all good. You know what I mean? So
Perfect. That sounds good to me. Thank you, everybody, for joining me, for joining Tony and I, and we will see you at the same time tomorrow to discuss everything Celtic. Cheers, guys.